Have you ever met someone who learns in a few weeks what takes everyone else months? They aren't necessarily the smartest person in the room. They don't study all day, and they don't seem obsessed with memorizing every little detail. Yet somehow, they improve at an unbelievable speed. Watching them almost feels unfair. So, what do they know that everyone else doesn't? Most people believe the answer is intelligence. We assume they're simply born with a better brain. But psychologists and neuroscientists have been studying learning for decades, and the evidence points to something surprising. The biggest difference isn't how much information someone takes in. It's what their brain does with that information after they learn it. Imagine your brain as a giant library. Every day, thousands of new books arrive. Every conversation, every page you read, every video you watch. Another book lands on the librarian's desk. But here's the problem. The library doesn't have unlimited space. If it kept every single book forever, it would become useless. So the librarian has a difficult job. It decides which books deserve a place on the shelf, and which ones should be thrown away. This explains something almost everyone has experienced. Have you ever finished an entire book only to realize a week later that you barely remember any of it? You didn't fail because you weren't paying attention. You failed because your brain quietly decided that most of what you learned wasn't important enough to keep. And this is where smart learners behave differently. Most people believe learning happens while reading. But that's only the first step. Real learning begins the moment the book closes. Think about it. If someone asked you to remember the face of a stranger you walked past this morning, you'd probably struggle. But if that same person suddenly asked you for directions, your brain would pay much closer attention. Why? Because the information became useful. The brain is constantly asking one question. Will I need this again? If the answer is no, it starts deleting. The fastest learners understand this without even realizing it. Instead of trying to pour more information into their minds, they constantly force their brains to use what they've learned. They explain ideas in their own words. They solve problems without looking at the answer. They teach other people. Every time they struggle to recall something, they're sending a powerful signal to the brain that says, "Don't throw this away, this matters." Psychologists call this retrieval practice, and it's one of the strongest learning techniques ever discovered. It feels harder than simply rereading your notes, which is exactly why it works. Every successful recall strengthens the neural pathways connected to that memory, making it easier to access in the future. Now here's the strange part. The techniques that make you feel like you're learning are often the ones that teach you the least. Highlighting pages, rereading chapters, watching endless tutorials. They all create a comforting illusion of progress. Your brain becomes familiar with the information, and familiarity feels like understanding. But when you're asked to explain the idea without looking at your notes, everything suddenly disappears. This is known as the illusion of competence, and almost every student falls into this trap. Feeling confident isn't the same as actually knowing something. The people who learn the fastest willingly choose discomfort. They test themselves before they feel ready. They make mistakes on purpose. They struggle, forget, and retrieve the information again. While everyone else is chasing the feeling of learning, they're building the ability to remember. So maybe intelligence isn't about having a brain that stores more information. Maybe it's about having a brain that's trained to keep what matters. The next time you learn something new, don't ask yourself, "How much did I read today?" Ask a different question. Could I explain this to someone else without looking at the answer? Because the people who become exceptional aren't the ones who consume the most information. They're the ones who make their brains believe it's too valuable to forget.